There's a conversation that happens inside medical and law school admissions offices that most applicants never hear. It happens in committee rooms and in the margins of application files. It's the little moment a dean closes a folder and decides. I spent over 15 years in that room. This is GradMissions Office Hours. I'm Autumn Rains-Lockett, and every week my team and I bring that conversation out into the open because the process was never meant to be a mystery, and your future is too important for guesswork. Let's get to work. This week we're going to talk about med school secondaries.
Yes. Okay. It is the season. We have lots of our clients who are wrapping up their primary applications or getting close to wrapping up their primary applications. Autumn, I saw you in there doing a little tweaking, a little finessing on the final versions of things. And so I know a lot of our med clients are getting very close to wrapping up their primary application and putting it all into AMCAS, which is available, right?
At the time of this episode drop, your AMCAS, EECOMAS, and TMD SAS systems are open. So you should be entering your information into those CAS systems right now, even if you can't quite hit submit yet.
Do not wait until the last moment. Let's take a moment to talk about that. Don't wait until the last moment to put that information in. Start now. That way you have plenty of time to make sure that everything is exactly as it should be. That would be the worst case scenario, is to put this information in and then realize that you made an embarrassing mistake on your primary app. So anyway, a little PSA there. But our clients are wrapping up their primaries, which means it's time for them to start brainstorming their secondary essays.
Yes.
This feels like a beast. Autumn, do you agree that writing secondaries or pre-writing secondaries feels like a beast?
I think in the traditional mindset, the Reddit iteration of pre-writing your secondaries, I think is absolutely a fool's errand.
Yes, that is the best way to put it. Yeah, the goal of pre-writing your secondaries is not to anticipate every question that anyone could ask ever. That would be a waste of time.
This is not amino acid pathways. This is broad. It's more ethereal than that.
I actually don't even think it's worth it necessarily to go dig up last year's secondaries for the school that you're applying to. I actually don't even really think, while that might soothe your anxiety, I actually don't even really think that that is necessary or helpful, because the secondaries definitely change. Are there some schools that never change them? Yes. I find that quite a few schools do change them from year to year. And again, you're duplicating effort, because the goal of pre-writing the secondaries is actually just to reduce the enormous amount of writing by writing reusable story buckets, right?
Yes, that's exactly it. When you are doing the look up all the secondaries from last cycle and write those essays, you're not pre-writing secondaries, you're just writing your secondaries earlier. When we say pre-writing secondaries, we mean a mise en place, basically, of your stories, where everything's in chopped and ready and optimized so that as soon as you get that recipe card, you can just throw it all in.
Now that you put it that way, I will be honest, that is the step that I always skip in preparing a meal.
Logan, it's so important, the mise en place. The thing is, your sous chef is still too young to chop. See, my sous chefs are old enough to chop, and that's the difference.
That is true. I am all the chefs, and so usually I'm winging it as we get going here. But that is the perfect way to put it. So I thought what would be helpful to talk about today, because I've already started with some of our clients, is to talk about what are the top secondary essay themes that would be most worth the effort to pre-write. And again, these are
gold mine.
Yeah,
Logan, this is a gold mine you're giving these listeners for free.
Well, you're welcome, listeners. I think there are at least 5 categories that you are most likely to see in secondary essays. So let's start with what I think is the most common.
Okay.
And remember, we're gathering stories here. We're not trying to figure out exactly what they're going to ask.
Right.
But
we're not counting characters yet or words yet.
Correct. No. One that I do think we know almost exactly what they're going to ask is what we call the Matchmaker essay.
I knew that one.
Oh, Lysand knew one.
Because
There's a similar in the law school space.
Yes.
That's why Liza knew it.
And
Okay,
always
so
matchmaker, matchmaker, make me a match.
I had so much composure and didn't sing a Broadway show tune. And because you are my dear friend, you did it for me. Thank you.
I had to do it.
I
I'm
was
sorry.
not
I just
ready.
had to, I know nothing about this, but I love, yes, this is a gold mine because what I do know about secondaries is the sprint of it all stresses me out so much. So these themes and working with the themes and seeing how your experience is already tied to these themes, I think is wonderfully helpful. So anyways, I will let y'all continue. I just couldn't help it that I actually knew one.
Okay, so Matchmaker is mission alignment, which is basically why this med school makes sense for you and why you make sense for them. So, Lizanne, I'm guessing what you were saying is basically why law school, right?
Exactly.
Why this law school?
Why this
right,
law school?
specifically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you'll have to weigh in to tell me if this is how you would prepare for this similar law school question. But I was thinking about, what are the best ways to prepare for this type of essay? And this truly is one that you really do know what they're going to ask. They're really going to ask, why did you apply to this law school? Or why did you apply to this med school as well? And so I think the first thing you can do is develop a core story that basically addresses, a moment in time when you figured out how to notice, interpret, or respond to people's needs. Right?
Yep.
Don't you think that's a good lead in for
Yes.
why are we pursuing these career fields?
That's right. Because med schools like to think they have this really unique mission statement. And there's a lot in the algorithms right now about how you have to mission align with your med schools. Y'all, most of these mission statements are exactly the same. They are the same thing. It's a word salad of the Hippocratic Oath in their own flavor, basically. And so when you can get to the heart of why you're pursuing medicine, you're going to align with 100% of these missions.
So we're starting with a narrative. We're going to reuse that narrative.
Oh, yeah.
And then we're going to save the last 15 to 20% of that essay to talk about specific information about the school that you are applying to. So you could talk about specific programs. You could talk about mission and values, which sounds highly reusable. You could talk about place, right? Big metropolitan city, rural, or suburban program.
The community that raised me and trained me is where I want to serve as a doctor. So this is where I want to go to med school. Yes.
Yes. Familiarity.
Yes. A research lab, a specific PI, the curriculum, the way the curriculum is laid out, being a part of a major research university. I mean, we could go on and on and on about that last 15 to 20% of the Matchmaker essay.
And this may not apply for med, but yes to all of that for law. They don't specifically talk about mission as much, but still how your values align with the school's values. And
it's just the sound of a cash register, really, in law school.
True.
That's the mission.
True. I always tell people, too, if they have some type of personal connection, especially if they're applying out of state, they love to see, again, on the law side, if you visited or you have family or, if they have some type of connection outside of just aligning those other things, that's great to add.
That's right.
Okay, similar approach for law school.
Yeah.
Narrative followed by customized last paragraph.
I would say so.
Okay. Okay, next essay topic, because we've got a lot to get through here. This is an essay topic that we call the North Star. So what this really is are your values in action. But you're probably thinking, there are so many values. What if they ask me about a value that I have not thought about? But here's the deal. Most of the values that a med school is going to list, they're all pretty similar. I mean, integrity, professionalism, ethics, moral consistency, equity, innovation. That's a good one. That's a little outside of the box.
Curiosity, scientific
right?
inquiry.
Yes.
They're variations on a theme, you guys.
Yes. And so you could probably, I think the best way to prepare for this one would probably to come up with 3 to 5 vignettes for those common values, right? Like, don't spend a ton of time writing long essays about 10 values. I think I'd pick 3 to 5 that are different from one another and just come up with an example from your life that represents you displaying that value. What did you do? How did you grow from it? Autumn, do you agree?
I completely agree. And there are going to be some schools who want you to address like a word in their mission. Pick one of these 7 traits in our mission and write about it. And yes, if you've done a good job in this tofu exercise, you can flavor that flavorless gelatin to taste like anything in that mission statement. And I think that's exactly the right approach. And don't just regurgitate the mission statement. They want to know how. Don't tell them, show them. And that still applies in your secondaries.
Okay, third topic. We call this one From Where I Stand, because this is about your unique perspective. This one comes in a lot of different flavors. Like, absolutely don't get me wrong about that. But I think primarily when you're asked this type of question, what they want to know is, how has your unique experience and what you have lived in your life, how is that going to allow you to impact your community? That might be the medical school. That might be healthcare in general, right? Like, there are a couple of different paths that this type of question might take. But on the whole, I think if you can come up with where you came from, how you see the world differently, how it allows you to connect with people who are different from you, I think that is another flavor.
Different from you.
Right?
Yes, that's the thing. Yes. You talking about your culture is incredible. And I think there's a spot for that more in the other impactful experience that most of you knuckleheads are skipping. Why are you skipping this? Stop it. Go back to your primary and address your other impactful experience. You cannot afford to do it. But this is a variation of that other impactful experience, except it is focused more on other cultures, on other pockets of people, on other pockets of demographics, and less on your own DNA. Is that how you interpret it, Logan?
Yes.
Okay.
How will you take what you have experienced, and how will that inform how you interact with others that are different from you, and how will that impact what happens next?
That's right. That's right. Really testing cultural humility, cultural understanding, cultural competency.
Okay, next one. Aspiring healer.
Ah, yeah. Do you know what you're getting yourself into? That's what I think the prompt should say.
Yes. And the answer is no. The answer is no. I don't know what I'm getting myself into. Okay, this is kind of your why medicine, right? Mm-hmm. A moment in time that it actually can be more than a moment. I think it can be a pattern, something that you saw time and time again, or a specific influence or something like that, that pulled you towards medicine. I do think picking out a moment in time that helped you confirm that medicine is what you wanted to do, I do think that is helpful in this type of essay. And then, what are you going to do with this, right? Like, that could be specialty. That could be if you have some idea of what type of specialty you want to enter into. That could be a certain population that you know that you might want to work with. That could be the type of physician that you know that you want to be based on this experience that you had. This is the place, even if they don't directly ask you this question on a secondary, which a lot will, don't get me wrong, you should still have this answer down pat for interviews.
Yes, absolutely. The other thing about this, sometimes I see people, they will look at it and they say, well, I already answered this question in my personal statement. I already talked about this in my activities and experiences. Yes, say more about it. That's what the med schools are saying. Yes, you don't have to come up with a completely new why medicine for this, but when did you scratch that mosquito bite? You know, that's what we say. Like, when was your scratch the itch moment? Dig in a little more. Maybe you tell it from a different perspective. Maybe you tell it in a different way. Maybe you saw it in 2 patient experiences. Write about the second one that you haven't talked as much about. So you don't want to exactly copy and paste. I have seen people do this, copy and paste from their personal statement into the secondary. No. Like, that's building a skyscraper when you have 40 acres, as we like to say around here.
I think you could also, if there are two parts to a question, right? Like, when did you become interested in medicine, or why are you interested in medicine, and what specialty do you plan to pursue? I mean, sometimes prompts will be just exactly like that.
Exactly.
If you know you've already written a lot about the moment when you chose medicine, lean more heavily into where the future is going.
Yeah.
Lean more heavily into a specialty, a population, something like that. Don't you think?
Yes. Yes. In this, it's also okay to talk about a physician who's been a mentor for you. You don't want them to be the main character. You know our rules that you stay the main character, but what about that person who you admire or look up to? Do you want to incorporate into your medical practice and experience and focus more on what you'll do with it? But it's okay to kind of anchor it to a person too. I think we've seen that done really well in the past.
Okay, last topic. I think this one is very straightforward, but sometimes hard to come up with, depending on what your life experiences have been. The hardship essay.
You and I were both a little verklempt this week reading one of our clients about doing her hospice work. I saw your comment and I was like, yep, because I'm grabbing my tissues too. It was so good. And it was not a specific hardship that she had overcome, but it was a hardship in her patient-facing experiences when she had to deal with a tough time and she had to make an ethical judgment in that moment. And you and I mean, I think she made the right decision, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so this story shows resilience. It shows resilience, it shows emotional readiness for medicine. How do you prepare to write this type of essay? I think, if possible, writing about an external challenge. I think there are other places that you can write about an internal challenge.
Other impactful experience.
I think sometimes you'll find secondaries about personal growth. I think there are lots of opportunities to write about an internal struggle where you had to overcome something. I will actually talk more about that here in just one second. If you have an external challenge that you have encountered, now that can be like endurance through adversity, right? So that could be like a family hardship, health issues, financial strain, caregiving responsibilities, long-term obstacles, things like that. It could also be that your pathway has been shaped by challenge. That is definitely other impactful experiences to a T. Marginalization, socioeconomic barriers, immigration or language barriers, things like that. I think both of those, depending on what you've experienced in life, those are all options for the hardship essay. But really, what we're trying to focus on is the growth. We don't have to focus on like how hard the struggle was.
Right.
That is not the point of the essay. The point of the essay is facing some type of external challenge and then
what you did about it.
What did you do about it? What do you know now that you didn't know before? Yeah. How will you handle something similar in the future? Yes. How will this impact how you talk to your patients if it was something, medical or something like that?
Yes. A good rule of thumb in your whole application and interviews, but especially in secondaries, is you want the people who are reading these words to see you as a peer, not as a patient, not as a student. When you can come across as someone who has shown some maturation through your patient experiences, through your research experience, through your academic journey, lived experience, those kind of things, you want to write as if writing to a colleague. And so if every one of your secondaries is talking about a time when you were overcoming a health instance, these doctors reading this are going to see you as a patient, and that is not the goal.
That is such a good point. I've actually never thought about that. I think that is and I think even if you do have a health-related external challenge, there is a way to write about it that does not imply patient, right? I think there's a way to write about it that implies strength, resilience, thoughtfulness, and a lesson moving forward.
That's right. That's right. And this also applies if you have a sick family member. or you had a sick family member and that was I mean, how many essays have we written about grandpas? And I get it. Like that's a lot of our like first interact, and that's fine. We write about grandpas all the time at GradMissions, but you have to frame it from a position of power and not as my little joke is always, you don't want to be poor me or pick me in any of this drafting. And that's so important.
Agreed. Okay. So top 5, Matchmaker, North Star, From Where I Stand, Aspiring Healer, Hardship. I'd like to take just a few more seconds just to rattle off a couple of other stories that you should storyboard.
We have 16 total that we have our clients pre-write. And with these 16 themes, they are ready for 99% of the secondaries that come their way. Every now and then, usually a California school, comes out with one like, when was the last time you were happy? Y'all, there's a secondary that we had last cycle. I'm like, I'm sorry, these are pre-meds. They have not frequently been happy. Love you guys. Not always happy.
That is so true. Yeah. Or like, what book are you reading right now? Those are funny and honestly really challenging to write about because it's like I'm have been studying for the MCAT. I don't read books for fun.
MCAT's Cars. That's the last book I read.
Okay, a couple of other stories to come up with and figure out how you want to map them out. Receiving criticism, working with difficult people, overcoming failure, managing stress, taking initiative, a patient experience, and specifically a DO patient experience if you are applying DO.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. And then research interests and or intellectual curiosities. I think that about covers it. If you can storyboard those topics, I think you're going to be ready. I mean, are you going to have to customize it and twist it a little bit based on what they actually ask? Yeah, of course. But so much of the writing is already done.
It's already done. Yeah. And you need to practice being able to come up with the answers to this because in an interview, you're not going to pre-write your interviews. When they ask you a question about, tell me about a time you lied in your med school, that's an actual question that gets asked sometimes. Tell me about a time you lied. If you have to like go to a committee and figure out like which of your stories you're going to tell, you're not going to do well in interviews. So if any of this stuff is sounding hard, if you're listening to these secondary subjects and you're like, oh my gosh, what in the world? Email me. We have a secondaries only essay package where we can help you out with that. It is not too late to start a curated application experience. Logan's going to hit me for saying this, but it's actually not. We'll take some last minute MD DO clients right now. The smart ones have been working with us since January, but if you're wheeling in here on 2 wheels, we can probably find a spot for you, but you better come ready to work. You also can work through your interviews. We have an interviews only package. So shoot me an email. We can talk about what that looks like. Any parting words as we start writing these secondaries, Logan?
Godspeed.
That's all we have. Bye, y'all. We're always on socials at @grad_missions. We'll talk to you next week.